Oh, what's going on, GameLeap? This is the Jids, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the 10 best mid laners you have to pick for patch 11.16 and how to actually play these. I'm going to give you a tip for each one to help you hit the ground running when the new patch hits, and you can even apply these tips in your games right now. On top of that, we're going to go through builds, and I'll also throw up some rune pages on the screen for you. So to know the ins and outs of all of these champions who you will play against in the mid lane, make sure to stick around for the whole video, and if you are enjoying the recent GameLeap content, make sure you hit that sub button down below and the notification bell, and also make sure to check out the GameLeap website for the most elite learning resources League of Legends related on the web. Whether it's a champion course, a champion guide, a role guide, micro, macro, whatever it is, how to run it down. Well, we don't have a guide on that, you can just watch Tyler 1. But for that Challenger tier content, make sure you sign up like thousands of your fellow summoners for that exclusive access. Links in the description and comment section. So let's get into the countdown, and coming in at number 10, we have one of the best AD assassins in the game, and this is Zed, who has been really strong this season, mainly because Seeker's arm guard has been nerfed, so if you're ever up against a mage in the mid lane when level 6 comes around, you can get a kill pretty much every time your ultimate is up. And even after the Prowler's Claw nerf, Zed has just been overperforming. Now it's true, with mages like Cassiopeia and Syndra getting buffed recently, some laning phases can be pretty difficult to navigate, but as long as you stay healthy in the first few levels, you're going to be sweet. Now on the build side of things, you have a few options here. You can go with Eclipse if you're against a tankier team because of the armor penetration passive, or you can go for Duskbladed Draktar for the ability haste and the passive, which is going to allow you to obliterate squishy enemies. And you still can go Prowler's Claw, but there's a little less playmaking potential now because you can only Prowler's Claw to enemy champions, not minions and monsters. Now for your second item, guys, you should pretty much always be building Serpent's Fang because the enemy team is going to have shields. And after that, it's really up to you. You can go with Serylda's Grudge, which honestly feels so good on Zed because all your abilities are going to slow the enemy champion, and this is going to make it easier to land your shurikens and not send them to Mars. Or you could opt for Edge of Night if you're against a team with lots of skill shots, or crowd control, but I'd only do this if the enemy team is looking very squishy and isn't building that much armor. Otherwise, your lethality that you're building isn't going to do that much damage. So those are your core items, and in terms of your boots, I'd always recommend Lucidity boots because ability haste is such an important stat on Zed, and those are your core items. Now the recommended runes are on your screen right now, and for all of these rune pages, guys, the armor and magic resist you're going to see in your minor runes. You choose armor if you're against a heavy AD team, and magic resist if you're against a heavy AP team. And the one tip I'm going to give you guys playing Zed, when you use your W, right, this could be at level 3, this could be at level 6 during an ultimate combination, whenever it is in the game, I want you to throw your W out to the side of the target instead of on top of them. Lots of Zeds I've coached in lower elos especially will throw that W out on top of the enemy champion, and this makes it very hard to land your Qs afterwards. Of course, landing your E is just guaranteed no matter where you place your W, but really what you want to be thinking about when you're throwing your shadow out is putting it in a position so you can land those shurikens. This is going to maximize your damage output and land you more kills as a result. Now just ahead of Zed, guys, coming in at number 9 is one of the most consistent mid laners for Season 11, and this is Annie. And despite the recent nerfs, Annie is still performing at a very high level, especially in lower elos. And one of the reasons, aside from the fact that Annie does so much damage anyway, is the diversity in your build now. So you can either go Luden's Tempest or Hextech Rocket Belt for your mythic item because both are going to give you the same magic penetration. But I would just recommend Rocket Belt because of the dash, which means you're less reliant on your flash, and the movement speed you get as well is super underrated. And then after that, it really depends on the team comp you're against. So if you're against a lot of CC and AD, you can always build Zhonya's Hourglass. It's always going to hold some value. You can go Void Staff if the enemy team is building a lot of magic resist. You can go with Horizon Focus, which is going to proc off your stun. You might even decide to go over Death Cat because you're really snowballing and the enemy team isn't building that much magic resist. Morellonomicon is also a good shout if the enemy team has lots of innate healing. So you've got a few options here. Just make sure that the item has some AP in it. And in terms of your boots, guys, take Sorcerer's Shoes in every single game. It's going to give you the most kill threat and the most burst damage, which is what Annie is about. Now, as you guys copy the rune page on your screen, the tip I want to give you for Annie is that when you have 3 stacks, and you can tell this by the way by looking under your resource bar, use your E to ready your stun, and then you use your Q or W immediately after. This is going to catch the enemy by surprise because you're doing it so quickly, and the movement speed you get from your E as well is going to allow you to gap close to the enemy champion and get your stun off. In the early levels, this will be so important to do, so make sure you do it. Even when you hit level 6, it's going to give you more kill potential, so make sure you do it. Now, beating Annie, guys, to the number 8 spot. Let's say you don't want to play Zed, but you do want to play an AD champion in the mid lane. Well, one I would recommend is YONE. And for YONE, it's gotten to the point where like 0-10 is a legit power spike. You know, it doesn't matter how you get to your immortal shield bow spike, as long as you get there, even if you are 0-10, there is always a chance of you hard carrying a game because it's so hard to bring you down. So you'll build, obviously, immortal shield bow, but before this, what you want to be doing is getting Berserker's Grease because this is going to lower your Q and W cooldown. And the movement speed is really useful as well to stay mobile and get off your abilities. And then after shield bow, you have a couple of options here. here, you can go Mortal Reminder because it's giving you attack speed and crit, and it's also great against teams which have healing, and with Gold Drink is so good right now, you're going to want to build this in those games. Or what you can do is just build an Infinity Edge straight up, which is going to maximize your DPS. And in terms of the other items you can build, you do have a few options. You have Guardian's Angel, which is great into AD teams if you feel as if you need the armor. You have Bloodthirster, which would be great into bursty teams. And you also have Wit's End, which would be good into AP teams, and Death's Dance, which would be great into AD team. And as you copy down the optimal runes for YONE at the moment, the tip I want to give you is this. When you have your Q stacked, right, you have that Whirlwind ready to go. What lots of inexperienced YONE players do, guys, is they do this. They just ulti right off the bat. So if this is the mistake you're making, the fix is to use your Whirlwind to set up your Fate Seal. Now, whether you do this by Q flashing, whether you do this by Eing and then Qing onto the enemy champion and then ulting, whatever it is, try to get closer to that enemy champion before ulting, or ideally CCing them so your ultimate is going to land. And what's great about this is that as your ultimate lands, you can get in a free Q there as well. So this is really important for your DPS, and this is going to land you more kills. Now, beating YONE, let's say you don't want to play any of these mechanically intense champions, you just want to chill and win. Well, MALZAHAR is the best pick for you. Now, MALZAHAR this season, guys, even before Liandry's got reduced in price by 200 gold, and even with the recent MALZAHAR nerfs, Malz has still been one of the top performing mids. He's got excellent wave clear, he's hard to kill because of his passive. From level 6 onwards, he has kill pressure and is great to gank for. And with Liandry's Anguish as your core mythic, when you follow this up with a Rylai's Crystal Scepter and then a Zhonya's Hourglass, this gives you the tankiness you need and the stickiness. Also, the Zhonya's active comes in really handy, but you can also decide to swap Zhonya's out for Demonic Embrace if you're against a very tanky team composition. Now, if those are your 3 to 4 core items, what I also want you to build, guys, in terms of your boots is either Sorcerer's Shoes or Lucidity Boots. So Sorcerer's Shoes is great if the enemy team is building a lot of magic resist, or if your team actually needs the damage. Otherwise, you're going to build Lucidity Boots. This means you're going to get more ultimates off during a game, and even in team fights, just getting more silences off can be really impactful. And in terms of tips for MALZAHAR, as you write down the best rune page, just press R. Now, another safe mid laner, guys, honestly, everyone should have in their champion pool because he is so damn consistent, is Galio. And despite the cooldown nerfs to him this season, the Obelisk has been one of the strongest mid lane champions. And the build you're going to go is very simple. Hextech Rockabout as your mythic item, and this makes you very scary to play against because the dash and the movement speed allow you to get in range of enemy champions to taunt them and then knock them up. And then after that, you're going to go Zhonya's Hourglass. This allows you to land on top of your teammates with your ultimate and then buy time with the stasis for your cooldowns to come back up. And after that, honestly, it really depends on the game and the situation. You can go with Morello's if the enemy team has a lot of healing. You can go with Void Staff if you want that magic penetration because the enemy team is building a lot of magic resist. You can even go with Banshee's Veil on top of Zhonya's so you pretty much never die. Even Demonic Embrace into tankier teams. Rabadon's Death Cap if you want to go full Chad Galio. And in terms of your boots, it really depends as well. You can go with Sorcerer's Shoes if you're snowballing and the enemy team is squishy. You can go with Merc Treads if the enemy mid laner is a LeBlanc, let's say, who's going to be bringing CC to the party and a lot of burst damage. You can go with Lucidity Boots if your team doesn't need the damage and you're playing more around your cooldowns. And you can even go Ninja Tabi or Plated Steel Caps if the enemy team has a lot of attack damage and Zhonya's isn't enough. Now, as you're changing your rune page to the one on screen right now, my tip for all you Galio players out there, lots of Galio players, well, new ones anyway, what they'll try and do when they hit level 3 is they'll try to E onto the enemy champion and then W. But the thing is, guys, your E is very telegraphed. It's very easy to predict and it's easy to see and dodge. So what I want you doing from now on to set up that gank or to set up a kill for yourself is to flash and then W. This means that you're going to 100% land your taunt, you're 100% going to land your E, your knockup, and then your Q and your passive if you have it. This is a much cleaner way of comboing than just hoping the enemy champion doesn't have their screen turned on, so make sure you do this in your games and you will see the benefits. Now, if you want to play a snowbally mid laner and an AD assassin, then QIYANA is the pick for you in 11-16. And despite the Prowler's Claw nerf, which we all thought was going to affect QIYANA big time, it really hasn't, and that's because you have so much mobility in your kit innately. And even with the new Prowler's Claw, where you can only Prowler's Claw to enemy champions, because your W is a dash and your E is a dash, it doesn't even matter if you can't Prowler's Claw to a minion. You pair this with Serpent's Fang, Cyrilda's Grudge, or Edge of Night, and you have a serious recipe for success. Now, in terms of your boots, guys, Lucidity boots pretty much every day of the week. This means more ultimates, more roaming potential, more trading potential. It's just ideal. And as you're copying down the rune page on screen, I want you to practice, this is the tip for QIYANA, using your W and Q as quickly as possible. So what lots of new QIYANAs will do is they'll W and then they'll Q like a second or two afterwards. This is very easy to see coming, and if you're the enemy champion, you're going to dodge this pretty much all the time. The best QIYANAs in the world will combo so quickly with their W and then their Q that it's pretty much impossible to react to and dodge. So that's what I want you doing in a practice stall. Just practice Wing to a brush or to a bit of terrain, whatever it is, and then Qing pretty much as soon as that dash ends. This is so crucial to your comboing. Now just ahead of QIYANA, guys, there's a mage who got buffed recently, and in higher elo, CASSIOPEIA has been killing it. Now I get it, lower elo Cassiopeias do have trouble. I even coached someone from Gold 4 to Plat 4 who strictly plays Cassio. It's hard to climb on her. But the recent buff that saw her ease damage double, this has given her a lot more threat in the lane, so that if you do land your Q, you can be even more aggressive against the enemy champion. And when you couple this with Liandry's Anguish and the ability haste, this is giving you Serap's Embrace, so you have to build a tier and then you build this into Serap's. You can go with Zhonya's Hourglass, you can go with Rylai's Crystal Scepter, even Cosmic Drive as an option because of the ability haste and the movement speed. You can choose Morello's, you can choose Void Staff. There's so many options here, guys, for Cassio, but yes, your core is Anguish and then Serap's Embrace. And in terms of the boots you want on Cassio, honestly, don't buy any. Just buy 6 items. Now, the tip I want to give you guys on Cassio is this. As you look at the runes you should run, see, lots of Cassiopeias, what they do is that they think because their Q is off cooldown, so they have it ready, they have to use it ASAP. Well, using your Q as much as possible is kind of a good thing, but the quality of your Q is much more important than the quantity. If you spam your Q 24/7, you're going to go very quickly, especially in the first few levels, and you never want this. You always want to have pressure in the lane, and sometimes, guys, if not most of the time, holding on to that Q is going to create more pressure than actually waste pressure. So my tip, if the enemy champion isn't CSing a minion or channeling an ability, just hold on to your Q. This is going to make them play the lane differently because you have this cooldown ready if they do misstep, and you're just going to land more by actually choosing good times to Q rather than just queuing on repeat because it's off cooldown. Now, one of the strongest mid laners for Season 11, guys, has been SYLAS, and this is the bronze medalist for 11-16 mid laners, and despite the nerf to Darksteel coming in next patch, SYLAS just has way too much innate power to not have him on this list. The buffs to your W and especially your passive have given you that trading potential, which is honestly kind of hard to match, and when the buff came to Everfrost that decreased its price by 200 gold, this has just accelerated SYLAS's ridiculous mid to late game and made him an absolute powerhouse. So that's the mythic item you want to choose, Everfrost, and then after this it really depends. You can go with Cosmic Drive if you don't feel as if you need Zhonya's first to survive, otherwise go Zhonya's and then Cosmic Drive, and after that it's really up to you. You can choose Morello's, you can choose Deathcap, you can choose Void Staff, you can upgrade that Darksteel into a Magi. It really depends on the game and how you're actually going and what you need. Now in terms of your boots, cooldown boots are always going to work and they are the most popular right now, but if you're against a team with a lot of CC and you need Mercury Treads to survive, Merc Treads are a great purchase, or you can go with Sorcerer's Shoes if you feel as if all you need is one round of cooldowns to blow up the enemy squishies, and I'd only really recommend this if you're experienced on SYLAS or if you're just 10-0 at 10 minutes. Now the tip I want to give you is a very simple one, but you even see the best SYLAS players in the world committing this mistake sometimes. What they do is they throw out their chains, so the second part of their E, willy-nilly. They just do it for the sake of throwing it out because they want to see the animation or something, I don't know. But what I want you to do, guys, in your games, I want you to hold on to your chains a little bit longer and you're going to see the effect this has. It's a bit like Cassiopeia saving her Q. This exerts pressure in the lane because the enemy champion knows if they do misstep or if they do move up to pressure you, you can chain them. Because as I said, what lots of SYLAS players want to do, they want to throw out their chains pretty much instantly after dashing into the enemy champion, which can be good, but most of the time it's better just to let the enemy champion run themselves out of room for your chains just goes through the roof. So make sure you do this in your games. Now the number 1 AP champion, guys, for the mid lane in 11-16, I think this is the second patch in a row she's been the best. This is KATARINA, and I'm pretty sure we all know why KATARINA is so good. Now that she's got on hit and attack speed in her kit, this has opened up so many builds, and the fact that Riot's nerf to her this season was to her movement speed, I mean, we just know she's going to be broken for the whole season. Now in terms of items, we want to try and tap into that on hit you now have in your kit, so Nash's Tooth is going to be the best first item you can buy. The on hit, the AP, the attack speed, which also gets transferred into your ultimate, you know, even at this stage, this is just too much. And then you can follow that up, guys, with either a Rift Maker if you're against a tankier team, or Hextech Rocket Belt if you're against a bunch of squishy champions that you can blow up. Then you want to go with Zhonya's Hourglass because this is going to give you the survivability you need in fights and also the durability so that when that stasis ends, you have your cooldowns back up and you can go back in or escape. And like the other AP champions on this list, after that, it really depends. You can go with Void Staff, Magi's, Deathcap, Lichbane even if you want the on hit. It's really up to you and what the enemy champions are doing. And in terms of your boots, guys, just always get Sorcerer's Shoes. This is going to give you the most kill potential. Now, as you're copying down the Conqueror runes for KATARINA, one tip I'm going to give you is really for the early laning phase, which to be honest can make or break a lane for Cat. And this tip is to auto attack after your E in the early levels. Because as you E, guys, what you can do is actually right click on the enemy champion. And this is going to mean that as soon as you land your Shumpo, you can auto attack almost as part of that animation. Now, it doesn't sound that important, but it is, because DPS is all we really care about when we're playing our champions. This is about efficiency, but it's also going to be a Conqueror stack, isn't it? So in terms of damage, this is great, and it's also going to accelerate that Conqueror stacking, so it becomes very hard to lose trades, but it's something that lots of low elo Katarinas don't do, so make sure to auto attack as part of your E. Now, the number 1 champion, guys, for another patch in a row because Riot have decided to not nerf her is is IRELIA. And I don't think I need to go into any detail here about how good IRELIA is, so let's just talk about the build first of all. So your first item in every single game wants to be Blade of the Ruined King. And then really after that, you have a choice of 4 items here. You can go with Gore Drinker if you want the sustain. You can go with Divine Sunderer as your mythic if you're against a tankier team. You can go with Shield Bow if you're against a squishier team, but they do have a lot of burst damage. Or you can go with Wit's End if you're against a heavy AP lineup. Then after that, Steris Gauge is probably going to be your best bet, but again, it really depends. You can go with Death's Dance, you can go with Wit's End if you didn't go this as your second item. Guardian's Angel can be thrown in there, Kenpunk Chainsword can be thrown in there, so you have a lot of options here. Now in terms of your boots, Ninja Tabis are going to be good into AD teams, Mercury Treads into AP teams, and the tip I'm going to give you guys for Irelia, even though you probably don't need one because she's that broken, is to Q while walking away. That sounds weird, doesn't it? So what I want you to do, guys, is to disguise your Blade Surge by walking away from the target you want to execute, and really I'm talking about enemy minions here, because if you're just running straight towards that minion you're going to Q towards, the enemy champion can easily detect this, and they're going to stand away so you can't Q back onto them. So how I want you to use your Q is this. When you see a minion on the enemy side of the lane that is last hittable, I want you to walk away from it almost to max Q range, and then what you're going to do is Q back onto it as you're walking away. This is going to disguise your intention, and then you're going to be able to catch your opponent off guard because they won't be expecting this. So this is a nice little trick you can do. So those are the top 10 mid laners, guys, for 11-16. I hope you enjoyed the video and the tips thrown in here. Let the Jizz know down below by leaving a like on the video. And as always, make sure to check out the GameLeap.com website on your way out for the best challenger tier content on the web. And until tomorrow's video, this has been the Jizz. Bye.